Feeling lost in the noise of social media? INSPO cuts through the clutter, connecting you directly with real insights from real experts and industry leaders. It's a new social network dedicated to knowledge sharing, industry insights, and thought leadership. Get the latest from top minds in your field, or build your own thought leadership portfolio on INSPO. Already trusted by thousands of professionals worldwide, be part of the conversation and download INSPO Experts today on the App Store or visit www.inspo.expert.
So welcome back to the Take a Chance on You podcast, hosted by me, Alexandra Forsyth. I am so excited to have you here for season 2, interviewing guests, leaders and leaders on their way. Today, I will be passing the mic to Rebecca Taylor. Rebecca is currently positioned as a manager in the threat intelligence space at Sophos company since 2014. Rebecca has worked across many different roles, including business operations and incidents command. In 2022, she migrated to threat intelligence, implementing knowledge management processes for counter-threat unit. And Rebecca spends a lot of her time on the dark web and underground forums, looking at data dumps, access brokers, and emerging threats. So Rebecca, how are you doing?
Doing really good, and I'm really, really delighted to be here. So thank you very much.
I'm so happy to have you here today. And I do have a couple of questions I just want to throw out there, more so a conversation before we dive into leadership and what that means today and how you're navigating that field as well in your roles. But the one thing I wanted to mention was I love how you spend a lot of time on the dark web. I actually at university took one module in cyber criminology where I learned about the dark web, Silk Road and anonymity online. I was absolutely fascinated by technology. So I'd really love to see that you're doing a lot in that space.
Yeah, I love it very much. And actually, I'm at the moment looking at whether I could do a psychology course, because I think what I really enjoy about the dark web is you're interacting with humans and with actual living people that during the everyday are maybe going to work or living their normal everyday lives. But then for whatever reason, they're drawn into these dark web spaces. And some of them are conducting malicious activities or displaying malicious behavior. So I like the human element of being able to almost people watch, for want of a better description, but actually see what they're doing, how they're feeling, how they rally together, how morals can play a part in some of the things that they do and some of the topics they talk about. So yeah, it's a super interesting space, albeit a murky one.
Definitely a murky one, I agree. And then the other point, and we've spoken about this before coming on the podcast today, some of the emerging threats that are coming out of the dark web. So we're seeing legal services being advertised by different ransomware groups, which isn't an entirely new field because I believe that they've been getting assistance externally for a long time, but actually seeing that advertisement, you can now do damage control effectively before you target an organization to see whether it's worth it.
Yeah, so there is historical advertisements across these forums where they offer things like lawyer services in the same way that you can find pen testers and you can find people to help you build things. So those are just active roles that are available. But I think particularly when we talk about ransomware groups, there is this competitiveness or this one-upmanship where ransomware to build, to manage is so much more accessible than it used to be. And so now they're trying to compete all these different groups to attract people to pick them and to use their ransomware offerings. So whether it is the lawyer services like you spoke about, whether it's some groups are now offering call centers where they speak multiple languages. So on one hand, you could ring and get support, but on the other hand, they will help you extort victims from the data that you've stolen from an organization. They offer their own full packages and stealers now. But even some groups, which I find really interesting, there's always been kind of a line in the sand of places ransomware groups would or wouldn't go. And that's where I spoke about earlier, that morals piece. So, for example, quite a fair few ransomware groups fundamentally would not touch a hospital. And there would be arguments in underground forums about people selling access or attacking hospitals. But now certain groups are advertising that they're open to that and are actively seeking hospitals and those kind of support mechanisms out. So that they show, again, it's a different kind of competitiveness. We're open to everything. Our doors are open to whoever you want to go for. So again, it's a really interesting space. It can be a very hard space because I've seen both ends of identifying a ransomware actor, but through the instant command piece, actually looking after victims of ransomware. And it's tough. It's a really hard space, but it's interesting. And I think we're just going to keep seeing that evolve and change over time.
I really love that. It's difficult because there's a lot of competition between threat actor groups. I mean that there are a lot of affiliations now and they are very much working together, but it is, and there is a community and there is an ecosystem, but it does very much feel as reputations on the line. They need to be seen as this big bad
Yeah,
group that can go after every single industry. So it's tricky, but as you say, it's exciting for us because no day is the same in cybersecurity, and we wouldn't be in this
exactly that.
industry if we didn't find it exciting. I think that's great,
Yeah.
and that's such a great way to kick off the podcast, really. But also going, I mean, I haven't mentioned it straight away, but Rebecca, it might be quite nice if you give just an introduction into who you are and what you do, because you are a recent author as well, a co-author of your new book. And I know that there is a little segment at the beginning where you do dive into more of yourself. So I wonder whether it might be nice to just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, thank you. So, in terms of professional, as you said, I'm a threat intelligence knowledge manager and a human intelligence researcher, but it's been a different career pathway to get there. I started in industry as a personal assistant, where I was making teas and coffees and sorting out those meeting rooms. And I've just worked hard, had fantastic sponsors, mentors, and been able to progress my career to where I am now. And I'm incredibly proud of that, but I'm also aware that I'm very privileged to have that because it's hard and it's not always as straightforward as it should be. And so, with that in mind, I do a lot of what I call my extracurricular activities. And that includes mentoring and work in the community. But like you said, I've just co authored a book which came out in May with my friend Amelia Hewitt. And that book is really just playing to the fact that we both mentor a lot in the community. We both have a lot of allies, but a lot of female friends and female team members around us. And more often than not, we were getting the same questions brought to us about people struggling or finding difficulties in the same kinds of things. So we decided we wanted to create a resource that brought it all together. So you could pick up a book, find that information in sort of an agony aunt Q&A style, and then you could pop that book back down. And then next time you had an issue or you had a question, you could have a look back at the book again and go, oh yeah, I'll go to that chapter and dig in there and see what they recommend. Because we also are aware that some people find it really hard to find mentors as well, or to find people that they trust to talk to. So we wanted to do it in the vibe of almost like you're hanging out with your friend over a coffee and you're talking it through whatever's going on. So we're really proud of that relatable text. And it is making a difference. We've had people reach out to say, oh, that chapter or that question you answered was really helpful, or even just that they felt more seen or more heard by what we'd covered. And that's the goal. No one deserves to feel alone, especially in an industry like ours that can be that challenging and where personal resiliency is so important.
I really love that personal resiliency point, because I mean, we're accountable for ourselves, really, and it's great to have a mentor and it's great to have a coach and to have people higher up that can lead us the way. But if they can't, or if in the beginning, if I look back at my journey, I didn't have a mentor at all, it was just very much trial and error a lot
Yeah,
of the time, getting rejection after rejection, and then finally making my way into cybersecurity. But it wasn't always like that. Now a lot of allyship, a lot of mentorship going on. I think it's fantastic, all of the communities, as you say, but you are accountable for yourself, and that resilience piece, going after what you want, not being afraid to, I
yeah,
think is really, really important. But I really love what you mentioned about your book, that agony aunt segment where you can put it down, pick it back up again if you do have a question that you need the answer to. The book is an open book without
yeah,
being too forward. So I think that's fantastic, because so often now you read something, and although there's strategies in place and you know that you can put that book down and go away and implement it, it doesn't always feel like you can do that every day. So this book, it sounds like it's something a little bit different.
yeah, yeah. I do think it's different. It's like you said, there's lots of incredible cybersecurity texts and books out there, but you kind of have to read it from start to end and then you get the full picture. But actually, what I think with our book is that, like I said, you can pick it up when you need it. I describe it as almost being a bit Nanny McPhee, if you've seen that film, where it's there when you need it. And when you don't, you can pop it back away. So it's kind of a bit like that. It's probably the best description if you're of that generation.
No, definitely. I watched Nanny McPhee, gosh, years ago now, back when there was just so many films to watch. Nanny McPhee, there are a few others as well. But yeah, the concept I used to love. She would just
Yeah.
she would come and do the work and then off she would go again. But thinking about the idea of leadership and thought leadership, being an expert in your field and then passing that on to, say, the next generation, I'm a big advocate for. That's what season 2 is really about, talking to people who are either aspiring or they're very settled in their role, but now they want to pass on their knowledge. So you've spoken about kind of how you got here so far. What do you think about leadership and kind of implementing that within your role today? And what would you recommend to others?
It's tricky because I often don't view myself as a leader. I think it's quite a big word to own and feel comfortable with. And I think a lot of that is tied to my own personal self doubts. And also, as silly as it sounds, but in having that different career pathway, like I don't have the great big whopping computer science degree, and I don't have loads of technical qualifications that I think a lot of people throw out there to almost prove why they're there and prove why they're in that field. And so it can feel hard to then own that leadership position. But like you said, it's been a different pathway, and I do feel very much now in a space where I have the privilege and the experience that I am really trying to push it back out there and give it back. So whether that be in terms of having an understanding of cybersecurity and how to stay safe. So now I use my knowledge to try and help in schools and talk to parents. And I'm running my first event later this year for how women in particular can be safe online. So thinking about how threats specifically apply to females. Um, so I'm trying to give it back out there. But in terms of the leadership piece, what I'm trying to do is lead. So obviously I've had my first set of different managers. I try to lead with the best bits of what I've seen, but also what I would want, particularly as a female, as a member of an underrepresented group, what I would want from my leader for me to be able to thrive. And I think I've had a lot of beautiful lived experiences, but I've had a lot of difficult ones too. So all of that has helped me form into the person I am now and the person I try to bring into the leadership position. So leading with empathy, leading with that level of consciousness of you never know what else is going on in somebody else's life, leading with almost levels of empowerment. So what does that individual person need to shine and to thrive, instead of being like, yeah, we've got training programs, it's all good. Understanding really what people need, and also understanding how different people's minds work. And that's something I really focus on at work, is we're not all built the same. And particularly with threat intelligence, it can come in so many different formats and structures, and it can come in really technical language that can be so overwhelming that you're like, it's fine. If it impacted me, it would be written for me. So I try to, when I'm working with people that are creating threat intelligence, to play to how they work. So whether that be I sit with them and I act as a scribe, whether that be that I give them quantitative or qualitative data, or I work in presentations with certain colours, I try and build that into the way that I work, but also then the way that I push threat intelligence out into the community.
You said so many amazing things there. I really love how you try, and especially with threat intelligence, it can be quite technical at times, and it's nice for us to be able to filter it depending on the audience. So as you said, incorporating colours. I think for me with threat intelligence, it's definitely not a one size fits all. I try not to talk too technical, even if I'm talking to the most technical person. I try and just have that human conversation. And it goes back to what you say, empathy, leading with consciousness. Emotional intelligence is huge. Not everybody really knows how to tap into that, but just really being an active listener to people. It's definitely EQ versus IQ. I would say it's not about being the most intelligent person in the room. I never feel like that. Yeah, I never ever. I think I always end up feeling quite intimidated in a lot of rooms that I'm in, which I think's a great thing, because I know that I'm never going.
Yeah. I think I've been described at work as almost or not the one to watch, because that makes me feel a bit yucky, but the one that almost surprises people. And I suppose again that's reflective of the career I've had, right? Where you wouldn't have many moons thought that personal assistant is gonna be in the human intelligence team. But I like to surprise, and I like to work really hard, and I like to role model, I suppose, to show that it is about keep driving, keep moving. If you want something, like you said, it's for you to own it and make it happen. No one's going to give it to you. And so you do need to put in the work, and you can ask for support and you can bring other people along, but you need to make it happen. And that's very much something that I have pushed through my whole career is, yeah, making it work, leveraging what I have around me and the experiences I have to make it work. Sometimes that's been in a quick way, sometimes it's taken years, but I've kept going. And I think that's the most important part. So what's the best way to describe threat intelligence? So threat intelligence I'll describe it as like little nuggets or little seeds, and they all add up together to form a picture. So maybe they're like puzzle pieces, and all these puzzle pieces can describe things about a threat or a danger. So that could be what we call indicators. So bad domains, bad URLs. It could be behaviors. It could be tactics, things that people are doing. And these all feed into a big picture, which helps us understand the threat or the threat landscape, you might hear it referred to. So in my role, or 50% of my role, I'm about grabbing all these little puzzle pieces and pulling them into this beautiful picture. So I'm able then to storytell and explain what it means, whether that be to a person, a mum at the school gate, whether that be to an organization or even a charity. That's probably the best way I can describe it at a super high level. It's lots of very confusing puzzle pieces, but they eventually, whether that again be in the short term or in the long term, they will go together and you will understand something or see something that you hadn't seen before. The collaboration that we're seeing more and more between public and private, if you consider some of the huge takedowns that we saw across last year and takedowns and arrests that have happened this year, that's because of that collaboration and that intelligence sharing. So it really can come from anywhere. And yeah, it goes towards people being cyber conscious and cyber informed as individuals and as organizations.
I think it's really difficult because you want people to be more cyber conscious, but sometimes they're just not that interested or they do find it too difficult. So being able to have that one-to-one human conversation can allow them the space to explore at their own pace and not feel that we're jamming it down their throats and saying, you need to have strong
Yeah.
passwords, you need to implement MFA, you need to sign up to such and such. It's about just saying, do one thing today and then possibly do one thing next week. And then by the end of the month, you've implemented certain controls and you feel a bit better. So it's just about taking them on that
Yeah.
journey with you and saying, you're good for now. We just want you to start, as you say, thinking more cyber consciously about what you're doing, because overall it's to benefit them as well.
Yeah. Yeah. We know that being cyber aware can be a pain sometimes. Like when you do get that notification on your phone, you've got to update a password for, say, your social media account, and it's got to be however long. And now I have heard people complaining, if we think about the Online Safety Act, where people have suddenly started complaining about this age verification piece and, oh, it's such a pain. It's so annoying having to do that. I can appreciate that, but it's for the greater good. And that's what cybersecurity is about. It's for the greater good and to make a positive difference in the world that we're in. So as painful as it can be, I do love a strong password, and I do love to encourage people to patch and use MFA and all that good stuff. We can only try.
I do. I get a bit addicted, to be honest, implementing the controls, seeing how far I can push it. I'm a bit of a nerd, to be honest. But yeah, definitely a strong password. But I mean, biometrics these days, obviously, you can do the facial recognition and the voice. It's just one to be careful of with that in terms of deepfake and what we're seeing at the minute. Just making sure that you're happy enough to alleviate some of the controls to that kind of verification as well. But that's amazing. So I think what might be quite nice is one thing I wanted to ask you as well. So we've spoken about leadership and thinking about kind
Mhm.
of team concept collaboration. What are the benefits do you see of that in the current roles that you're in? Threat intelligence, that business operations, instant command, working with different teams internally in the company that you're with, but also externally. So through the networking, through the events, being able to speak to people in the industry.
So I think one of my key skill sets is collaboration. And actually, I had to do one of these personality tests not that long ago, and that was my superpower. Was being able to collaborate and bring others along. So something I'm quite proud of as a skill set, but I think it all just naturally feeds into that accessibility and that inclusivity piece of asking people, what do you need? Like, how do you best work? There is no shame in saying to someone, we've got to work on this together. How do you like to work? Do you prefer us to have a call? Do you prefer to work off a spreadsheet? Do you prefer to have regular calls, or we talk it through? I think being open and honest right from the start of how people actually like to work and making the adjustments to the way that you would maybe have gone or have delivered something, that's what's going to bring people along, enable people to trust you and believe in you because they know that you actually care about how they work and what they need. So I think that's the first part in collaboration. I think, like we said earlier, if we relate it to threat intelligence, but anything, any project management piece, it's having the data in, or the plan in, different formats. So again, throwing an Excel spreadsheet at someone can be incredibly overwhelming, especially if that's not the way that their mind works, how they process information. So again, having it in different formats, different visuals, different aids, empowers people to, again, be part of the conversation in a way that's authentic to them. I think one of the main things I would call out, I spend a lot of time just trying to be authentic to who I am. So I have lots of just regular check-in calls, and I'll just message people and be like, hey, we haven't spoken for a while. I'm just checking in to see how you're doing. And that in itself, I think, aids collaboration because people know who I am and that there is no judgment and that I'm there and they can have a chat with me. And if they're struggling or they can't keep up with a piece of work, you can talk to me. I'm not gonna berate you, but we can have that open, honest conversation and I can help you. And I think that was my other superpower that I was told I had, was my willingness and my urge to help. So that is, again, something I think that counts in collaboration is, whilst you can have your managers that are overseeing it all, I do think when it comes to cyber, it's about chipping in. It's about coming together because some of these threats, some of these conversations, some of these projects can be gigantic. And like we said earlier, take a really long time to do. So everyone chipping in, supporting each other, checking in, asking, are you all right? Because you've been working on this for a while, or I know the topic you're working on is quite challenging or upsetting sometimes. Having those check-ins, making sure people are mentally coping, not working extensive hours. If we think about incident response, where say you're working on that in a collaborative way, that can be relentless and that can be 24 hours just going through those initial stages. So just making sure people have a safe space and a space where it's respectful. They're the key things anyway that I would call out around collaboration and be doing it in an authentic way.
I know you don't want to be seen as a leader. I very much get that feeling from you. From what you mentioned in the session today, I think definitely leading is going back to what you mentioned earlier on, leading with empathy, being open to others. But I really love that piece, just dropping somebody a message. It doesn't have to be this big thing where you look at someone's calendar and block some time and then that person thinks, oh, I've got to go to that meeting because it's 30 minutes long and Rebecca wants to check in. If you just drop somebody a message halfway through the week, Wednesday or Thursday, and say, do you want to catch up this week or next week? Let me know, 5-10 minutes. And just removing this, what's the word I'm looking for? Formality around speaking to somebody, just making it genuine, informal. Check in with me, let me know how you're doing. But then going back to what you said about actually figuring out what do your colleagues and team like doing in terms of either project work or how they work, so spreadsheets or having a workbook or call, how do they road mapping that? I always advocate for road mapping somebody's career as well. So if they are onboarded into your company, ideally asking a few questions during the interview phase might be quite nice. Where do you, not the casual, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Because honestly, that question just really, I can't even answer that. I can't. The big question, I can't even answer it myself. I've got an idea, but God, I don't know where I'll be. But just saying, you're in this role, where would you like to be in 6 to 12 months' time? Or as you say, what are your ways of working? What's your style? And then just road mapping it to say, okay, maybe it's worth thinking about this course or this certification, or maybe if you want to spend more time with clients, it's time to think about upping your public speaking and getting you prepared and confident and ready to have those types of conversations. I was never given that really in the beginning. I was really thrown in on the client side, and the expectations were very high from the threat intelligence to just present the high level trends, the strategies, and I had no idea what I was doing. And I just gave it a go. It did work out because I'm and go back to what you said at the beginning, I'm very resilient. If someone says no, I'm just going to go and make it happen. But having those conversations earlier on, because not everybody thinks like that, and not everybody wants to be thrown in on a big client or a big company, a big
Yeah,
project. So definitely love what you mentioned there about just being there for your colleagues, being there for people around you, because you spend a lot of time with these people 5 days of the week. If you're on call, depending on what role you're in, sometimes that extends to the weekend. So it's really about just
yeah,
bringing everyone together.
yeah, 100%. Just touching back on what you just said, um, something I'm doing at the moment is I want to get more comfortable in exploring different sources when I'm writing up my research. So I just said to my manager, having that check-in, like you said, I went, you know what, I'd really love to start doing this kind of threat intelligence without going into the weeds. And then literally the next day said, I've got an opportunity for you. Do you want to come in, shadow, start writing stuff? And I can
Lovely.
lead you and mentor you through it. So I think, again, it's that piece where you do the casual
Mm.
check in, but being conscious when you're issuing tasks or responsibilities or jobs, whatever word you'd like to use, that you're conscious of what that person is aiming for. And can you help? Yes, sometimes they're going to get that piece of work that they really don't want because that's the nature of the beast. But sometimes you can be conscious to what they're really aiming for, what makes them tick, what can help them get that promotion or that progression, and then target certain responsibilities or tasks to them that enable them to grow and develop. So I think that's another key part of collaboration. Sometimes it's the tough jobs that people don't want to do, but sometimes it's an opportunity that people are really waiting for, and you can make a difference in how you bring them into that.
I really love what you said. I keep saying that because you keep saying really things that I do love. But what you mentioned just then about you spoke to your superior or your manager, you told them this is what I'd like to do in threat intelligence, and then straight away they've obviously gone away, they probably thought about it, and the next day they found a resource, told you about it, and said, I'll mentor you, I'll help you through it, you can do the shadow session, and off you go. And that's the beginning of a new journey for you and a new milestone and a new
Yeah,
pathway, still within the same field of threat intelligence, but you're being enabled to do what you really came here to do, and
yeah,
that is the ultimate gain. You want to get the most fulfillment out of your role. You want to keep progressing. It's not always about promotion. You
100%.
can't be waiting 2 years and then on to the next level. You need to be doing something in the middle there to get you even
Yeah.
further, possibly in a shorter amount of time. Really
I
love
think with a
that.
lot of career progression
Mm.
now, it is being about able to list, and even when you're applying for a role, being able to list and demonstrate what you're capable of. So any way that I think anyone can get that exposure, particularly those that I speak to a lot of people now wanting to work in cybersecurity, and they've done a course and they're like, okay, what do I do now? I've applied for all these jobs, nothing's happening. But I think being out there in the community, being able to demonstrate what you've done, do a bit of volunteering, reach out to people in the community and ask for a shadow session, because that all goes towards you in that interim, like you said, in between the career moves or the progressions, almost padding yourself out with skill sets and with knowledge that's out there. But you, again, like we said, you're the one that needs to make that happen. People are not going to give it to you. So you've got to be a bit bold. You've got to go for it.
You have to be bold, and you also have to think about building your portfolio, like you just mentioned. For
Yeah.
example, public speaking, going to events, conferences, doing the certifications, great, but who are you outside of that? And I always say, what podcasts you're listening to, what books you're reading, where are you going, who are you speaking to? It's a lifestyle when it comes to having a career in something like
It
cybersecurity. We
really
are all
is.
on the same mission, I like to think. But some people are doing a little bit more than others in terms of really embodying what it means to be in working in cybersecurity. So and I'm not saying it has to take over every aspect of your life. Please have a personal life, have friends, have your family, go on holiday, do all of the many things that we should be doing in our lives. But do you take that step back and think one or two certifications, it's just not going to get you the whole way. You have to really branch out and figure that out.
Yeah, I love that. And that's very, very true. I mean, I think you spoke about earlier about burnout and being sort of the more challenging sides of working in cyber, where it is that personal resiliency piece, but burnout is rife and it's such a big problem. But I think there is that line between burning out and like you said, embracing cyber in how you are as a person. Take your holidays, have a break, spend time with your family, have dinner at normal times, all those good things. But pick up the textbooks, have a read, listen to some podcasts, talk to other people in the community, drop someone a message on LinkedIn. I love that. Just send someone a message and go, hey, I
Yeah,
liked
me
your post.
too.
Do you fancy a chat? I'd love to learn about that. That's how you're going to
Rebecca
be
did when she
nourished
wanted
as
to
a
come on the
cyber person.
podcast.
No comment.
I loved it. I was waiting for you actually, because myself and Rebecca have known each other a while. We've been connected on LinkedIn for ages, and I've always seen your posts. And I think you had the book launch as well, and I wish I was able to come to that. But yeah, I've been keeping tabs on what you've been doing. So when you did reach out, I thought, yes, come on the podcast.
I'm very grateful though. I
But
think you're amazing, and I love what you do as well.
I
In a
think you are
non-cyber
too.
stalker way, I've been watching you as well for years, so I feel really, really lucky.
It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on today. I think there's just so many nuggets there in terms of threat intelligence and what it is, but you really broke down that strategy, how to have those conversations with people that aren't necessarily in the industry, but then also thinking about ways of working, how to tap into your current team, making sure they have everything they need, checking in, leading with empathy. I think we need more people to lead that way and think that way. It's not always about, as I said before, return on investment, KPIs. It really is.
Yeah.
We're here for the business, but we also need to be people centric as well. So I think that was absolutely brilliant today. But my last thing I like to do, season 1 with the guests, I ask them to give me a quote or a phrase that they sometimes think about. For season 2, because a lot of the guests that I have on for season 2, I know that they've either been on other podcasts, they do a lot of public speaking. So I actually wanted to ask, if you want to give a quote or a phrase, that's fine. But if you wanted to share something that maybe you haven't said before for the listeners, and it would be the first time they hear it, that's also okay. So I'll leave it open to you.
Oh my gosh, that's a curveball question at this point. What would I say? The thing I'm focusing on a lot
I wonder if there's anything
myself,
I wonder if there's anything from the book.
Yeah, so we have started working on the next book. So I can throw that out there because we've not said that out there yet. And as part of that, we're thinking about themes and topics.
Nice.
And the one which is sticking out to us the most is to do with people having what they need around them to be resilient and to shine. So the previous book was a lot about tackling myths, tackling issues around mentoring, what to study, where to go. But actually there's a lot of people already in industry that don't have what they need around them to be able to be happy and to shine every single day. So I think what I will leave the audience with is have a look around you. Where are you working? What's your desk like? What's your environment like? What do you do every day that's just for you? So do you go to the gym? Do you step away? Do you like to go for walks? And when's the last time you did that? Because with cyber, it's incredibly cyclical and you're chugging through every single day and you'll conquer something. You'll complete that policy review or you'll complete that cyber incident, but then the next day there'll be another one. So I want you as a listener to step away and look what you're doing and what you have around you, both physically, personally, emotionally, to empower you to deliver and to be authentic to yourself at work. And if stuff is missing, start thinking about what you need to do to put that in place. And that's what I'll throw out there. Give people some time to think is where I'll leave it.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And that was Rebecca Taylor on season 2 of the Take a Chance on You podcast. And I will see you all very, very soon. Bye.